Alrighty guys, today's video is on scanners, and today we're talking about the Kingbolen K8. Full disclosure, this video is sponsored. However, this scanner has been extremely helpful to me in recent times, and I make a video about it because I think it's a great bargain, honestly. It does things that scanners typically double or triple the cost do. Now, this scanner isn't cheap. It's about 700 bucks, but like I said, it does things that scanners typically double the cost do. And it does it very well. So getting into it, it comes with this nice big case, which you can see here, which opens up, revealing the scanner and a bunch of different accessories you'll see behind these doors as well. The actual device sits pretty nicely in here. This is the K8. They do make a K7, which is a bit smaller, but this one's the K8, which I believe indicates an 8-inch screen. The device itself is nice and rugged, very protective, well built, well constructed. There's actually a camera out back, which we can use to take pictures of vehicles for diagnostic reports, which personally I haven't used, but I think it's pretty cool if you work on multiple vehicles, especially if you're like a tech or something like that, or a mobile mechanic. Up top, we got the I/O ports, which thankfully has USB-C and USB-A that you can use to charge it, of course, and do updates, but you can also update it with Wi-Fi alone. If you take off the cover on the back, you can see there is a spot for a micro SD card for extra storage, and I believe also a docking station or an external battery. Not too sure on that, but I believe both are available from the Kingbolen store on Amazon, which of course will be linked all below. There's also this super nice metal kickstand which folds out seamlessly, and that all works really nicely with this Bluetooth dongle over here that's included. It actually slots right over here. This guy automatically pairs once it's in the car, and it's pretty awesome how seamless this all works, which I'll show you guys in a moment. What's even cooler, I think, is that it comes with so many adapters for different cars. This connector over here is actually for older BMWs, which is awesome. We're going to try this later on my buddy's E30 and see how that goes. And of course, it comes with a little power adapter and various connectors for different regions of the world. If we open up these compartments of the case, you can see there's actually a lot more going on. We have more cables, which, like I said, can do a lot more things. This one can be used with an optional battery tester, which I don't have, but you can get a battery tester which can hook onto a battery separately and then communicate with this scanner. We have some user manuals of here as well, and a lot more adapters. This one over here appears to be an OBD2 extender if you have a hard-to-reach OBD2 slot. This one appears to be a separate connector, which I actually don't know what this does. It almost looks like some sort of battery terminal reader. And we also have, of course, the USB-C charging cable, which we can use with the supplied adapter. I personally just use my Mac charger because it's convenient, and USB-C is just amazing. And here's a more comprehensive list of what this guy actually works with and what it includes and all the adapters. Like I said, I don't know what most of these adapters are for. I presume older cars from other manufacturers that I just haven't worked on before. But in terms of Mercedes and BMW, you're definitely covered with the older models, which is pretty cool that this thing works with cars as new as a modern Mercedes or BMW all the way back to the 80s and even 70s, as long as they have the specific ports like the 38-pin for Mercedes and the other Pac-Man sort of connector, as they call it, for BMWs. On this side, we have even more adapters over here, which, like I kind of said earlier, I personally haven't used very much yet, but I'm sure we'll use them as I kind of get more involved with this tool, and if I use other cars with this as well. But primarily, I've only been using the OBD2 with my more modern cars like the ML63, C63 SLS, and the 530i, and even the 335i. They all work pretty well with this. But I have used this with my SL, and we're going to try this with an E30 soon today. So just to show you how versatile this tool is, currently we actually have it hooked up to an E30, which is pretty incredible. So here we have the under hood connector for the E30. Ignition's currently on. This comes in our kit with the Kingbolen K8. We have this adapter going to the OBD2 plug over here. This is an M20 V25 and this E30 over here. We go back to our tool, which is set up over here, nice in the shade thanks to that wireless connector. Pardon the glare here. We go to diagnosis, looks like BMW. We'll go okay. You can hear it beep, just sort of initialize over there. Now, if this were a later E30, I believe an 89 or later, we could do automatically search, but because this car is an earlier E30, it won't actually supply the VIN to the code reader. So we'll have to do manually select. We'll do 3 Series, we'll do E30, we'll do drive, engine control module, just to show you guys what it's capable of doing. And then once that loaded, it actually shows you all the part numbers of your Bosch ECUs, which is pretty cool. Press OK. I know, right? You can read fault memory over there. There's no fault codes in this car, which is pretty cool. If there were, we could clear them right here. We could also get a live data stream which is awesome. We'll just select all. So here we can see all the live data. The car is currently turned off, so there's not much to see, but coolant temp shows you live data about that. We can even make a graph of this. It'll show you a live data stream. Every few seconds it updates. It's not exactly instantaneous, but it's close enough. You're just trying to get some data logs. We can switch between metric and imperial too, which is nice. And you can see over here, it shows even ignition timing, which is pretty awesome, intake air temp, and a lot more. And this kind of varies per car depending what's available from each chassis. But considering this car is, what year is it?
Oh, 1989.
89? I mean, that's pretty incredible that this scanner can even see anything from this car. You can also do component activation, test some things, like, for example, the injectors. We just figured this out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If we press this, we hear a lot of clicks. So if I press this,
That's crazy.
you can actually hear the injectors clicking, which is pretty cool, running a test on them to make sure it's actually working. What else is pretty cool, if we hit the idle actuator over here.
Hit it?
Yep.
Hit it? You can hear it smacking around in there.
So the idle control valve keeps actuating right now, which is pretty awesome.
Cool.
So lots of cool functionality with this scanner, even with an E30, which is a car that's pretty old for modern technology, but it works just fine. We also have these clipper cables attached to the battery for extra power. Not entirely sure these are necessary, but it works pretty well with both. It seems that it receives power with just the diagnostic port, but to be safe, we tried out with the battery as well and got good results. So, all right, now we're in my ML63 AMG, which we recently did engine refresh on. So lots of new things, and it's still kind of ironing out little issues here and there. Lots of work was done, but I think we have a small vacuum leak somewhere, so we got to figure that out. So it's time to use our scanner to see what we can find out, get some live data. We're going to enter in the same way we enter with the other cars. Now, I could do a full health report and get, sort of all the modules to be read, but I think right now I just want to read the engine control module. So let me do system selection, and I'll do engine control module. And I can do, let's see, read fault codes. Misfiring. So now a lot of this stuff could be stored codes. It looks like current and stored. The mixture in the right cylinder bank is 2, lean while idling, self-adaptation of mixture formation. For enrichment idle, for the left cylinder bank is above the permissible limit. So we certainly have some interesting codes here. But as you can tell, the car is running pretty much just fine. The idle's good. I just drove it about 4 miles around the block, just around the neighborhood area. Took it on the highway as well, actually, a bit earlier before I put the new battery in. And it's been running pretty much fine. So I'll have to clear these codes and kind of look into it more later. But we can see the scanner really gives me some good detail about what the codes actually are. Not just the P code, but it actually gives me an explanation, which is nice to have. And with the Wi-Fi connection, you can actually press code search, and it'll look online and even get you some answers. But we're not going to do that right now because we don't need to, but it's cool to have that built in. Currently doing a full health report with the Kingbolen K8 on the ML63 to see what's going to pop up, and it looks like quite a bit is going to pop up right now. Probably because we had the battery on and off several times with lots of stuff unplugged along the way while I was doing engine work over here. So we're going to reset everything and see if that solves my problem. I'm curious about the fuel pump module code, which I just saw a second ago. Well, when this is done, I'll come back and we'll look into it a little bit further. So, of course, we had a bunch of errors come up. Just going to clear them all now to see what comes back after the car again, because now the battery is hopefully not going to be disconnected again unless it dies for right now for some reason, because we do have some weird power draw stuff going on. So let's see. It looks like these codes remain. These two make sense because the parking sensors actually aren't secured right now, and also we have no wheel sensors. But this one, supply voltage control unit for ESP, that's interesting. So let's look into that. Let's check out some live data and see sort of what's going on right now. Just getting some live readings here, trying to get some information about the engine idle and the timing and all that, see if everything's okay. Things look okay to me. Nothing looks that, nothing standing out to me at least. So, so I think there's definitely some issue going on. It keeps saying it's the fault counter of cylinder 2. That explains why it feels so choppy. Oh, went down to 0. I guess it resets after a while. But cylinder 2 seems to be having some faults, as does cylinder 1, as does cylinder 5. I'll have to check those out, what's going on there. Hopefully it's something dumb like a spark plug being torqued down or something like that. I'll probably flip some spark plugs around and take a look from there. But cylinder 2 definitely should not be doing that. I'm hoping that it's nothing requiring me taking off the heads again. But I suppose we'll find out soon. That's definitely some good insight though, because that explains why it's running so weirdly right now. So I just drove the car around the block a few times. You can see for about a few minutes. There's a minute marker down there. It's a couple minutes I drove the car around the block. 0 faults until, of course, I bring the car back in the garage and it's idling again. And I'm noticing now, slowly, the faults are coming back. So this could mean it's something regarding, you know, the amount of fuel that's being released at idle, or could be spark at idle. I'm not sure yet, and to be quite frank, I don't have time today to deal with this, but I'm glad I have some insight into what's going on. So it seems like the longer I sit here and wait, we'll have some faults in cylinders 1, 2, and 5. Now, I did take off the head for the passenger side bank, which would be cylinders 1 through 4, and actually replaced the exhaust valves on cylinder 4. I'm not seeing any faults there whatsoever, which is a good sign. So I'm hoping it's something dumb like an injector issue, or an ignition coil, or a ground, or something like that. I also put new spark plugs in, so it could be something like that. What I'll probably do first is change around ignition coil, cylinders 2 and let's say 4 maybe, and then I'll see how that goes. But I'm noticing the longer I idle, the more faults I develop in cylinder 2. So something interesting is definitely going on. I'm going to inspect this more later, but I'm glad it's sort of recognizable with this scanner. I would definitely not have been able to find this out without this scanner, so this has been a huge help so far. Yeah, I'm actually going to plug this in the SLS right now and see how it compares. Aha, well, the plot thickens. Looks like we have the aux battery being defective, so that tells me something that's pretty important to know, actually. A few of my friends actually, shout out Anderson and Ian, they told me that the white battery light that we were seeing earlier typically indicates the aux battery is defective or at fault. In this case, it looks like it's finally showing me a code for that, which I would not have known without this reader, which is pretty awesome. So order a new one of those. I'll probably check the spark plug gap as well to make sure that they're all gapped correctly. I didn't actually check the gap, which was my bad on that. I was in a rush to start the car. They're new spark plugs, and I've previously installed new spark plugs that are supposedly pre-gapped like these, and they've been wildly off. So I'll check cylinder 2, 1, 5. I'll probably check all of them, honestly, and then reinstall all of them. And I'll also get a new aux battery, and that'll be our next sort of project, kind of buttoning this car up and also doing a few other things. But this scanner has really been helpful. I really don't think this wouldn't have been as straightforward as me doing some troubleshooting without this. It's always nice to have the right tools for the job, and this certainly is a massive step in the right direction for me, who usually just works off of trial and error. So, pretty cool stuff. Let's see what the SLS has in store for us. Picks up the SLS just fine. That's pretty cool. Let's do a health report on this car and see what it says. So on the SLS, you get some even more functionality. If you go to System Selection, AMG Drive Unit, you can see that there's even more stuff to look at. It's pretty cool. You can see the state of the rear spoiler, which is awesome. I mean, stuff like this is going to be critical for diagnostics and having these cars long term. I mean, all sorts of things I can't even necessarily take advantage of right now, but it's nice to know that I have the ability to look at all these data values later on. It's cool discovering the SLS. If I actually press this button over here, you can see that blinking. The spoiler goes up, and if I press the down button, the spoiler goes down. So I mean, this is really a comprehensive tool if it's able to do this level of detail. What's also cool discovery is you can actually test these switches to see if all the LEDs work. So for example, if I go to LEDs of a component, transmission, rotary switch, and if I press the actuate button, you'll watch closely over there, they all turn on. So you can test if they're all working or not. For press F4, they all turn off. So pretty phenomenal stuff that you really won't be able to do without a tool like this, or one that's more advanced, or more expensive rather. This one is plenty advanced, it's just not as expensive. So this is really pretty fascinating to me, and I'm kind of geeking out over this if you couldn't tell. So we'll move on to the next car now. Let's try this now with older Mercedes, which will have a 38-pin connector under the hood seal, typically right over there. Here is the 38 pin below its little cap over here. We have the adapter from the Kingbolen kit, which will fit nicely in place. The adapter's in, and so is the OBD2 dongle. Now we can go over to our launch tool, and we'll go into the car and put the ignition on. This is my 1987 SL 500. Let's do Mercedes. Okay. Let's do manual select. We'll do SL class 129 up to August 99 because mine's a 97, which was built in 96. Let's do that. I think most of this is because when I first got this car, I was basically sitting on jack stands for about 3 weeks because the car would not start or run properly after changing the fuel pump because the fuel line was clogged, and I thought it was a whole bunch of other stuff. And then the steering lock had locked me out of the car essentially, and my ignition switch wasn't working. A bunch of random stuff that triggered a bunch of things, which I actually have not properly read or gone through. The car's been running fine for the last, I don't know, 3-4 months, no issues at all. So I'll try to just clear all of these, and they probably will mostly go away. But some are quite interesting. I just can't tell. This is a transmission issue. I'm not sure if some of these are real issues or just, you know, false alarms because of the work I was doing. I suspect most of them will be. This is all because the cluster was disconnected, I assume. But yeah, I'm going to clear this up and then we'll see what sticks and what doesn't. So after clearing the codes of the S, it looks like the only codes that kind of stick are the temperature sensor codes that are at least related to the exterior temp sensor, which should display in this little area of the cluster right over here. Since I got this car, this display has never worked. I assumed the display was actually out, but upon doing some more research, this whole thing is actually one display behind the cluster itself, so it actually makes sense that just the sensor is out. Most of the bumper in my car is quite damaged in that area, so I wouldn't be surprised if the sensor is just knocked out of place or something, or if it's just disconnected or whatever it may be, or just not there anymore. So that's kind of cool. At least I know that the cluster is not actually damaged in that case. Well, I don't know for sure yet, but these codes certainly point me in that direction. Looking further into the cluster from the live stream data, we can see that the outside temperature is reading at negative 83 degrees Fahrenheit, which is definitely not the case. So that tells me the sensor is definitely not working. So we'll have to check that out. FT door contact switch, that must be just the front door. Let's see if I open the door if that changes. Yep, okay, that works. So if I close the door, that is off. Makes sense. Coolant washer fluid level 174, whatever that means. Clock forward button is off. Clock back button is off. Don't know what these circuits do, but that's still pretty cool. Key operated switch is turned on, which makes sense. Fuel level reading, it's fluctuating a bit. Could be a sensor needs to be changed, but very cool overall, I will say. Can do an actuation test, the light warning buzzer, let's test that. That's pretty cool. It makes the cluster basically just beep. So to test the gauges, you can actually run an actuation test as long as the car is on. If the car is off with ignition on, it won't do it. If I press the button on the scanner now, you'll see the gauges do a little bit of jump, which is pretty cool. It just shows that they're working. This is super cool too. If you look at the module for the retractable soft top on these cars, it shows the position of all the micro switches, the live data from those, and even it shows you more data like it shows you the micro switches for rotary tumblers and the doors, the windows, the roll bar switch, and the hydraulic unit actually working or not, which is pretty awesome. Overall, I'm just shocked at how much functionality this tool really has and the versatility. And we were using it in the SLS a minute ago, and now we're using it here. So pretty fascinating stuff. For perspective, check this out. I'll move the left window switch now. You can see that switch to on in a minute there. Even shows me hydraulic unit temperature sensor, which I didn't even know there was a temperature sensor for the hydraulic unit in the very trunk. It even has a readout for the hydraulic unit temperature sensor, which is, I believe, the temp sensor for the hydraulic pump for the roof. And if you have the hydraulic suspension, it'd be the same for that. I mean, I didn't even know that existed, but that's pretty awesome. We have now migrated to my BMW E39 530i, which I did manual swap quite a while ago. And I know there are some issues with this car right now, including a shredded O2 sensor wiring harness, which is why I have a check engine light, which is kind of annoying. I gotta fix that soon. So I'm doing the usual health diagnostic report right now. Looking really good. We got 10 issues in the ECM. We got 3 for ABS. And by the way, I've driven this car basically without much of an issue since the manual swap over 2 years ago. And I've had no lights in the dash since I did the manual swap. I'm only at the check engine light now because of the O2 sensor wiring harness that's shredded. And that happened because the heat of the exhaust manifold cracked, you know, the aging plastic that held the bracket for the O2 sensor wiring harness. And it just dropped in the headers and it totally melted it. So I got to rewire a bunch of stuff down there. I already have some new O2 sensors for all 4 locations, but that won't cut it just enough for everything. So definitely have my work cut out for me in this car, but it's been a reliable daily driver for the most part. It's never left me stranded, that's for sure. Which, you know, M54s are great for that. Cannot say the same for the 335i, but this car has been rock solid. Had it for now, what, 40,000 miles or so? So it's been pretty good, but it needed some help when I first got it. Well, that's certainly interesting. I wasn't expecting this many issues for the DME, having many cylinder misfires, but I haven't really experienced anything like that. Power interruption, brake light switch line. Interesting. Yeah, rear left, rear right airbags are disconnected right now for some reason. Need to figure that out. Navigation computer. Well, that's not here right now because I put this screen instead. Navigation computer. Well, that makes sense because it's not even in the car right now. Brake light switch wire open. Interesting. Engine oil pressure. Engine failsafe program. Transmission failsafe. Oh boy, this is just... wow. I think a lot of this is because I had my headlights out recently. I just did a whole headlight refresh and I had them disconnected with the battery still connected. This makes sense. Transmission failsafe because there's no automatic transmission. Engine failsafe, don't know why that is. Oil pressure, probably when I stalled the car moving out of my driveway once. Coolant level makes sense. There's a crack in my radiator that's leaking everywhere. This is all makes sense because all my lighting's been disconnected, so it's actually not that bad. PDC sensor, front left, front middle left. Yeah, these have been either disconnected or got a bunch of stuff wrong with that. Let's just clear it and see what happens. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot actually better. LCM module to see some live data. Kind of cool. It shows me the brake light switch if it's activated or not, which it looks like now it is. If I press the brake down, it even shows me brake pressure, which is pretty insane. It would tell me if DC button's depressed or not, which in my case, it won't make a difference because of all the lights turned on my dash. Christmas tree going on. So it's pretty cool. We can do an actuation test of the central locking. For example, I'll unlock the passenger door right now, which will just unlock that door if I press the on button. That's pretty cool. Actuation test completed. Alright guys, that wraps up this video. Hopefully it showed you how versatile the Kingbolen K8 is, from cars from the 80s to 2010s, etc. This scanner is super helpful for me, at least for my most recent projects, and I think if you guys are looking for a scanner, this is a great one to look at, especially if you're looking for one that can cover multiple cars from different brands. I should also mention this scanner can work perfectly as well with American cars, Japanese cars, whatever you can possibly imagine. I only used what I had access to, which in this case was a variety of German cars. Anyways, guys, leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and check out that scanner if it's interesting. And feel free to leave any questions you have about the scanner in the comments below, and I'll answer them if I can.